The power of white privilege, we are told, is all but unlimited. It underlies all our institutions. It is responsible for all non-white shortcomings. Its evil infects every white person and brings them wealth and power. To be white is to be one of the lords of creation, filled with what certified MacArthur genius Ta-Nehisi Coates calls the eldritch energies, dwelling within the glowing amulet of whiteness. Yet even those non-white Americans who could claim the sacred status of whiteness, for example, Arabs classified as white by the Census Bureau, resist its power, not out of principle, but because they know the truth. In modern America, whiteness is a mark of Cain, not a key to status, and political power comes from shedding the imagined privileges of whiteness and securing the actual privilege of a minority. For that reason, what are now called Americans of Middle Eastern and North African descent, or MENA, are clamoring for a new category on the 2020 census so that they will no longer be called white. Dr. Jermina Awad, a college professor who profits from the multicultural racket, claims her co-ethnics need a separate category to symbolize their marginalization and lack of recognition within the United States. Without their own classification, Americans of Arab and Middle Eastern origins are not accounted for when it comes to social services, she claims, and are left out in analyses assessing the educational, health, and economic needs of this minority group. A MENA designation is thus a way for Arabs and others to trade on their identity, claim inequality, and then get more government benefit. Similarly, Laura Zabib of Columbia University, in a column called "Stop Calling Me White, I Am Arab," demands a MENA class because being labeled white causes us to be underrepresented in advocacy efforts for minorities and to have a less cohesive lobbying voice. This argument is not only an implicit acknowledgement that whites cannot lobby for their own interests, but also confirms that the purpose of a MENA category would be to get public benefits and affirmative action. Ms. Zabib adds that her parents' attempt to conform to American culture prevented her from being a voice of diversity within her own small conservative town and curbing the discriminatory practices we now see coming to light, in her own words. During the Obama administration, the Census Bureau began planning to implement the MENA category and held meetings to discuss which groups to include. As might be expected, much of the discussion focused on how non-Arabs could be plausibly included, since everyone wants the rewards of being counted among the oppressed. The high-profile speaker, Arab-American Linda Sarsour, who also became infamous since President Trump's inauguration, is now best known as a left-wing protest leader. She has also, perhaps inadvertently, explained why she and so many others are pushing for MENA, stating, "When I wasn't wearing a hijab, I was just some ordinary white girl from New York." If MENA is established, it could presumably include members of many different races. Such a precedent has already been set with the Hispanic category. Ironically, the League of United Latin American Citizens, which was founded in 1929, had as one of its primary aims the categorization of Mexicans in the United States as whites. However, as it became more profitable to identify as non-white, priorities shifted. The Hispanic category that first appeared on the 1980 census was therefore in part a result of ethnic lobbying. Not surprisingly, once such a category is established, it creates a powerful barrier against assimilation. Other groups then will also try to carve out their own ethnic fiefdoms in the census, thus justifying more redistribution of resources from the host population. Many Americans take advantage of affirmative action by identifying as non-white. Mixed-race figures such as former President Barack Obama and even mostly white people already identify as non-white because of the political and social advantages. The rapid emergence of homosexual and LGBTQ identities may even be partially explained as a tactic for whites to avoid the negative consequences of being labeled white. Today, homosexuals, bisexuals, transgenders, and other more exotic labels are used not just to describe those who practice certain sexual behaviors, but to designate people entitled to benefits, set-asides, privileges, and official protections. So it's tempting to say such an irrational system will eventually crumble under its sheer absurdity, or as the number of the oppressed swells far beyond the number of oppressor whites. Ultimately, if all economic activity in the West is not to be crippled by racial rent-seeking, whites must organize as a group and stop anti-white racial preferences entirely. Yet this is difficult since whites think they can succeed as individuals regardless of what official obstacles they face. And this is the genius and curse of our people, that we so often can. Our individual virtue perpetuates our collective dispossession. If there is a dark magic in whiteness, as Mr. Coates would have us think, it's the ability of European Americans to remain blind to their own subjugation. Non-whites who could pass would be doing whatever they could to get white privilege if it were real. Instead, the lobbying by so many minority groups to ensure they are not labeled white illustrates how hollow their belief in white privilege really is. For egalitarianism isn't a principled stand, but a political weapon.